All right. So we got the playoffs around the corner. There are a lot of topics surrounding the playoffs with injuries. We have some play ins. We got a lot of stuff happening, but ultimately, the value of the playoffs and how that plays into the highly regarded formula. How do you weight playoff performances versus regular season performances?
Well, I mean, the playoffs are going to be. Picture this. We count it important when we see people like James Worthy perform in the playoffs. In fact, he was a top 75 all-time player by the NBA standards. But when you look at his stats, they're kind of pedestrian. And mind you, was he the second best, the third best player on that team? Maybe the fourth at some point. Byron Scott was good, but the catch is during the playoffs, James Worthy performed. You can say the same thing about Kobe Bryant. There's a reason why, again, we put Kobe Bryant a little lower than most people would in all-time greatness, but you can't take away that Kobe Bryant was always present in the playoffs. So long story short, if you weighed one game in the playoffs versus one game in the regular season, what would you think is more important? Obviously the playoffs. Now, how much more, that's up to each and every individual, but basically what I would do is say, hey, your relative playoff ranking all time compared to your relative regular season ranking all time is pretty much on par with one another. So if you have 100 playoff games and someone else has 200 playoff games, they're probably better than you overall in the playoffs. When you aggregate that across regular season and playoffs, give each body of season played equal weight, that could be 10-1 more important, 20-1 more important. And it should make sense because, that's where everyone's watching. So,
okay. So, you could put more importance on the playoffs. What kind of value do we put on something like the in-season tournament? Is it like playoffs junior? Is it like if playoffs is, 10 times the value, is the in-season tournament maybe like 5, maybe like 3? Like what's the difference there?
The problem with the in-season tournament is that we don't feel like there's a penalty for losing. Like when you lose the playoffs, that something is going to happen. If a team gets bounced in the first round 3 years in a row, guess what? The coach is probably getting fired because there's no progression. If you get bounced in the in-season tournament 3 years in a row, no one really cares. In fact, we've had situations where players lose the in-season tournament. They say, yeah, it's just like, it's only the in-season tournament. Now it's time to just, get ready for, the second half of the season or the Christmas Day games or just the next game. The in-season tournament loses what gives playoffs all across sports value, the scarcity and the consequence. The scarcity and the consequence are what make playoffs. If you lose, what do they say? If you lose, you go home, right? That's what makes the playoffs get the high ratings in sports. People know that if you lose this game, someone's not going to come back next year, and so there's a speculation around that. The in-season tournament doesn't have that gravity, and I don't think it ever will. I think they tried to mirror soccer and all those different types of international tournaments that they have. I'm not even going to mention the names because I don't follow soccer enough, but I do know that when all the European teams play each other and they normally don't play each other, that's something interesting. So maybe one day in the future when European pro sports catches up to the NBA or pro basketball catches up to the NBA, maybe there's some sort of in-season interleague play or Asia or South America. But until then, the in-season tournament is just kind of a cookie cutter copy of what soccer is, and it will never hold up to the same level of value.
It almost sounds like there's almost nothing there. It's almost created as kind of just an attraction. Because what is the point of, what do you win when you win the in-season tournament?
Well, I think you win the cup and maybe a little paycheck here or there, but that doesn't really impact a lot of the the high paid players that drive the competition. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, I think I looked up the some general results from marketing and revenue. The in-season tournament, I think, made about, for a normal regular season game in November, or I think it's November, for a normal regular season game in November, I think the in-season tournament drew 10% more viewership this past season. For Adam Silver, you know, that's 10% more revenue that he can claim, ad revenue that he can charge for these advertisers. But for fans, real fans, in my opinion, that understand the consequence and the scarcity of a real playoff game, I don't think it's much to pay attention to. And at some point, you know, in my opinion, here's the one way that you can improve it. Again, consequence and scarcity. You can't change scarcity, but you can change consequence. If the in-season tournament winners somehow got a bonus on their end of year record, it could cause people to play a little bit more for that. For instance, if, let's just say, the winner gets 4 games, a 4-game difference on their record. So instead, if they're 41-41, maybe they're 45-37 equivalent. They've still only won 41 games, but but because they have the stamp of the in-season tournament champion, maybe that could push them up a seed or two. I don't think it should push them up multiple seeds. So it's like they shouldn't win 8 games equivalent. But if you have some sort of real life consequence, so it's almost an indirect consequence on the consequence tournament, which is the playoffs, then maybe you could see some value added to the in-season tournament. But I think the NBA is scared to impact the actual records. But I think that would be it. Give the champion a 4-game bonus. Hey, give the runner-up, you know, a 1-game bonus. I just feel like that's the kind of stuff that could make or break someone's playoff seeding, and for that reason, give it some relevance.